Even From Software game veterans may have some trouble trying to figure out exactly what each character stat and attribute means in Elden Ring. Thankfully, after a whole lot of studying and experimentation, we figured out what all these things mean so you don't need to stare at your status menu and wonder what the hell Arcane does. I'm Jamie Latour, and this video will explain your character's stats in Elden Ring. Let's start with the basics. First off, there's your HP. You know what that is. That's your health. When you got no more, you're dead. Your FP is the blue bar. That determines how many times you can cast a spell or use a weapon ability. Run out of that, and no more magic for you. Then there's your stamina, and you need that to swing your weapon, dodge roll, jump around, or do any other kind of extraneous activity in combat. Then you got your secondary stats. Equip load governs how much stuff you can wear or carry in your hands. If this number on the left is 70% or higher of the number on the right, then you'll have a chunky fat roll that will make it harder to dodge enemy attacks. If it goes up to 100% or more of the number on the right, then you won't roll at all. Poise determines how likely it is for an enemy to interrupt your attacks and leave you stunned or knocked on your butt. Discovery is related to item drops. The higher your discovery, the more likely enemies are to drop their stuff. Memory slots are your spell slots. The more of these you have, the more spells you can equip. You get more of these by finding or purchasing memory stones. Alright, now let's get into the meat of this video, your character attributes. Each time you sit down at a site of grace to level up, you pump some runes into one of these 8 attributes. Sometimes it's fairly obvious what they're changing in your character, but other times it's not so clear. So let's run through each of them and figure out how they affect you when you level them up. Starting right at the top, we have Vigor. This increases your maximum health, allowing you to take more damage, which is pretty valuable in this game. It also increases defense, raises your fire resistance, and it boosts your immunity stat, which gives you resistance to poison and scarlet rot. Then you have Mind, which raises your maximum FP and increases your focus, which gives you resistance to madness and sleep. Then you have Endurance, which raises your maximum stamina, increases your equip load so you can use heavier weapons and wear heavier armor, and boosts your physical defense. It also increases your robustness, which gives you resistance to frostbite and hemorrhage, which is just a fancy word for bleeding. Strength and dexterity serve similar functions, as certain weapons will have specific requirements for strength, dexterity, or even both to use effectively. Raising your strength lets you use hard-hitting weapons, and it will increase your physical damage and defense. Dexterity lets you use quicker, more flexible weapons while also raising your physical damage output, slightly raising defense, shortening your spellcasting time, and reducing the damage you take from falling. It also makes it harder for enemies to knock you off of your horse. Much like the relationship between strength and dexterity, intelligence and faith are similar in that they allow you to use higher level sorceries and incantations. Sorceries typically require higher intelligence, while incantations require higher faith, although there are some spells that require certain levels of both. Each of these can increase your magic attack power, although intelligence is more effective at raising your defense against magic attacks. There are also certain weapons that scale with these two attributes or require a certain level of them to be wielded. Finally, there's Arcane, which is kind of a weird attribute. What it seems to do the most is raise your discovery stat, which allows you to get more item drops. It's more or less the luck stat. There are also certain sorceries or incantations that require some level of arcane to cast, and it raises your vitality, which gives you resistance to instant death, and yes, that's a thing. Now that we know what all this stuff does, there's no longer anything to worry about. You know, except for all the tough enemies, and the bosses, and the optional bosses, and the invaders, and the poison swamps, and all the other things that want to kill you. Yeah, actually, there's still a lot to worry about. I live in constant fear. For more Elden Ring news and guides, come on over to thegamer.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.